Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a book review for the Sword Defiant by Gareth Hanrahan. I've probably said his name wrong. I'm doing my best. I'm terrible with names, but that's probably the closest I'm ever going to get it. So I did this as a buddy reads with Kris from Kris Reviews, and hopefully you can hear me guys. It's very windy today out in the cemetery. But we did a buddy reads together with this book, and this book is a kind of a grimdark book, but I think it has elements of epic fantasy within it. Sorry if I seem to be shouting guys, I want to make sure that you guys hear me over the wind and everything else that's going on. But yeah, this was an absolute pleasure to get through. I was first introduced to this book through J.R. Carroll's channel, which did a book review for it, which I will have a link down below. And that video that he did kind of inspired me and wanted me to read this book because it sounded really great. The cover looks amazing, and I just wanted to pick it up and to see what I think about it. So this is just going to be more of a discussion rather than a review, I guess, and this is going to be my spoiler-free thoughts on it. This is book one in the whole series. So this revolves around a warrior called Alf, who is a member of these heroes which are called the Nine. This book kind of focuses on the aftermath of the big battle that happened. Basically there was a bad guy called Lord Bone, which, you know, can you get any evil name than Lord Bone? Yeah, he might as well have been called Lord Bad. But Lord Bone was the big bad in this book, or was, and Alf and his other 8 companions stood up and battled him, defeated him, killed him, basically defeated the bad guy, saved the world and rescued a damsel in distress, that type of thing. And this book revolves around the aftermath, after that big battle. What happens after they defeated the bad guy? What happens after the big battle? What happened at the end? What happened next? So Alf is kind of reclaimed Lord Bone's kingdom or area within this world called what is it called? Necrad? Probably said it wrong. I'm so bad with names and places and people's names, but that's kind of like the Mordor of this world. It's very dark and atmospheric. There's loads of creatures in there, and he rules it with some other members of the Nine as well, which some of them, which the creatures don't really like, but they kind of put up with it because they know that Lord Bone has been destroyed and defeated. And Alf is just there just to, you know, keep the peace and to try to keep an eye on any other big villains that will show up. There is also another character in this called Olva, who is Alf's sister. Now Olva is a very determined woman. She finds it very difficult because her brother is portrayed as being this almighty hero, kind of like this godlike figure within this world, even many years after the defeat of Lord Bone, as well as the other 9 members, or these 9 heroes. They are referred to as, you know, these godlike beings. People worship them, and her son has been, I wouldn't say kidnapped, but her son kind of holds Alf up as that status, that godlike character, that figure, and he wants to try to go and find his uncle and to have a talk with him and to try to probably train up with him. But he gets kidnapped against his own will, and then she has to go to try to rescue him. And yeah, that's basically the story. I mean, Lord Bone's remains has been disturbed, and his remains have been stolen and taken. And it's established in the book that when Lord Bone was destroyed, the 9 heroes buried him, and only they could take his body. They put a spell on it and all that type of stuff. So that's that conspiracy element there, as well as is Lord Bone going to be resurrected, or is a new big bad going to rise up and, you know, try to like upset the balance of things. And even though this book isn't very action packed, it's very character driven, and there are battles in this book, but nothing big. Do not go into this thinking that you're going to get big battle scenes like Lord of the Rings. You are going to get fights and battles in this, guys, but it's going to be more smaller scale. Does that mean that they are like bad or anything like that? No, it's still exciting, but this book is really interesting. And also the sword as well. The sword, which is called Spellbreaker, this is a character all by itself. This sword talks to Alf, because he took Spellbreaker from Lord Bone. This was Lord Bone's sword, and he took Spellbreaker when Lord Bone was destroyed. And it's kind of like the ring from Lord of the Rings, the Ring of Power, as the sword has a conscience. It can think, it can talk. And at first I was thinking, is this talk kind of a inner monologue that only Alf can hear? But when it's established at the beginning of the book that other characters can hear the sword, it's kind of established then that the sword can actually physically speak out loud and anyone can hear it. This eye on the hilt of the sword, that's not for decoration. This is an actual eye which a sword can actually see. And the sword's personality, it has all of this witty banter between Alf and the sword. And the sword, I wouldn't say it's evil, but it was meant for evil purposes, and it craves violence, it craves blood, it wants to destroy. But Alf says, well look, your original creator, I actually defeated him. He's actually been killed, and I'm now your owner. I willed you now, and you have to obey me. And there are other characters within the story that kind of question whether Alf should like keep Spellbreaker, whether he should remain with Spellbreaker. But I think that Alf knows that he cannot get too close to the sword because it might corrupt him and turn him evil. But with that said, I think that he knows that he's the one that has been given this responsibility, or he's chosen himself to take responsibility for this sword. So the other members of the 9, they are all very intriguing. We have a dwarf, we have an elf, we have a wizard, we have a shape changer. We find out a bit about that he was kind of like a golem type of character, that he was kind of shunned on and hunted by members of his village for being a shape changer and being a bit weird. And people do die in this book. There are deaths in this book, and it's a very good book. It's a very good book. I mean, I guess that if you are interested in reading grimdark or epic fantasy, or whether you've read one or the other and you want to try to dip your toes into the other genre of fantasy, then I would definitely recommend this book. This book was a very nostalgic book for me, even though I've only read it once. this took me and Kris a while to get through, and I kind of took my time with it, and we absorbed the story and got to know these characters in this whole world, even though the world building isn't as rich as I would like. But I enjoyed this book. This probably isn't going to be my favourite book of the year. It might be at the bottom of my top books of this whole year, but I can't wait to get into book 2 and figuring out where these characters go, what new characters are introduced. As the ending, as I always say, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but the ending is kind of a psychedelic mind trip of an ending, and it kind of makes you think what's going on, but I don't really want to say it ends on a cliffhanger. It kind of does and it doesn't. It's kind of hard to describe. So let's just go straight over to Kris now, where she'll be telling you guys her overall thoughts on the book as a whole.
Hi readers, Kris here. David, thank you for having me on your channel to talk about the Sword Defiant. David and I started reading this book all the way back in August, and it took us till the end of September to finish it. There was a lot going on, and it was a chunky book. If you don't know anything about the Sword Defiant, it follows an older character named Alf. Alf and his band of friends were like these really famous warriors back when they were younger. They defeated the evil Lord Bone, and now Alf is retired, and he is wandering around with Lord Bone's sword that he captured from him. The sword is actually really cool because he talks to it, which I thought made for some interesting banter. This book is described as being a grim, dark fantasy, and it is to a point, but I feel like I've definitely read grimmer and darker. But the things that I did like about this book are definitely the character exploration. There's a lot of character exploration in this book, especially when it comes to Alf being this retired, kind of jaded hero and what his life is like now, so long after being this like famous guy. There's a bunch of other characters as well, but he's kind of like the main focal point of the story. So if you are someone who likes like deep character exploration, you might want to check this one out. But I do think that all of the character work took away a little bit from the plot. Even I have to admit that I did find the plot slow at times. It's very much lacking on the action and the adventure, again, focusing more on the characters. Another thing I liked about this book is we actually have a side plot with Alf's sister, Olva. Now, I am a sucker for any good female character. I think she definitely is one. Although her story is one we've heard before. She's basically a mother that's looking for her son. I mean, literally, David and I read John Gwynn's Shadow of the Gods, Hunger of the Gods, which also featured a mother looking for her son. So not a new plot exactly, but I still liked that part of the story. And then one other thing I quote unquote didn't like is that there is like a villain in the story who doesn't show up until the very end. And I feel like that villain didn't have a lot of setup, so I feel like the book was missing an emotional payoff that it could have had. So there's some things I liked, some things I didn't. This one's kind of middle of the road for me. Has good things, but some other things that could be worked on. I definitely would consider reading a sequel if I had someone to read it with. So now, David, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Kris. And if you want to watch Kris's review on this fantastic book, I will have a link down below to her channel. She has an awesome channel. And I will have a link down below to her video and also her channel, so please check out her video and her channel. She's cool, and I really love doing buddy reads with Kris. So let's just give one like and one dislike for this book. As I've said, I love the characters. My only dislike, I would probably say at the top of my mind, is that it is a bit of a slow burn. It isn't really action-packed, but does a fantasy book need to be action-packed in order to be good? That's probably debatable, but I would have liked a bit more higher stakes and like more battles, big battles. But I'm going to rate this book a 4 stars out of 5. It was good, and yeah, as I said, I can't wait to get on to book 2. The whole series is going to be called Lands of the Firstborn, and it says book 1 on the spine. So yeah, that's just been my somewhat discussion, somewhat review, somewhat whatever of the Sword Defiant. Also, I will have a link down below to J.R. Carroll's video on this whole book as well, because he's the one that inspired me to pick it up in the first place, and I'm really glad that I did. It was so much fun to read this book, it really was. So with all that out of the way, guys, I'll see you on my next video.